off what you said about like you kind of have to get in other people's shoes.
Yep.
Would you say that you have to be adept at like being comfortable with being uncomfortable in certain situations?
Yep. A lot. We were at, so here's two things about it. Okay, so we were at something at a conference on Friday, a bunch of us from the office that went, and there was a really interesting presentation at the conference about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And the reason that you need to be is because the fact that you're uncomfortable means you challenge yourself, that you put yourself in a situation where you can learn, and that you don't learn unless you're being uncomfortable. That if you're always staying in your comfort zone, you just never learn. So that's really good. I think, and part of people who, or me, even when I was thinking about leaving the profession, I was uncomfortable. I didn't know anything, and I felt a bit like a sham, right? That I was presenting myself as an expert on stuff that I knew nothing about, and that made me uncomfortable. But what I learned was that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. You're not expected to know everything, and so being uncomfortable is okay. And after a while, the more you leave yourself open to that, the less uncomfortable you feel. And then if you can project being comfortable, right? Even though you're uncomfortable, if you can sort of, no one thinks that, it's a good thing. Because projecting being in control and being kind of on top of it, after a while you start to feel it. And you start to feel less uncomfortable.
What do you recommend for new and upcoming architects like us?
Let me see. I think that so much, and you're going to get this anyway probably, but so much architecture now is more and more technology based, and you got to be good at that. When I was, I started when you had to draw by hand, and so the drawing skill was really useful. I still think it's a useful thing and I don't do enough of it anymore, right? So I would encourage you, because it's almost like now when everybody types and no one can write, people forget that writing is a nice skill to have. Handwriting is a nice skill to have, because there's something about design and it's something about architecture that's very hand-brain connected. And I remember drawing, and you could almost feel where the lead was on the pencil. You had a really, really good sense of turning the pencil as you drew. How is a line thick? Is it thin? And that's a creative act, making a line when you're aware of it that way. You make a line on a computer, there's no creative act. It's just here to there, and that's too bad. So what I guess I would say is that you're going to get the technological side you can't avoid it. But it would be nice not to ignore the hand-drawn side. If you like to sketch, keep sketching. Because even now, all of our work is on computer. All of our final work is on computer or models. But most of us still draw because it's a way of getting your ideas on paper quickly and to sort of doodle, to sort of get to a place where you can then take it into the computer.
Would you say, based off what you've seen in your career, that you need to be creative, but not too creative?
No, I don't think I would say that. I think that I'm not quite sure what it means to be too creative. I mean, I think you need to be as creative as you possibly can be, and then let the client tell you when you're being too creative. Let them say, wait. I don't think you can be too creative. I mean, I think my only caveat or whatever with that is that I think you need to be realistic. And I mean, you need to be real world. You have to, what you create on some level needs to be built. Architects, unlike painters or musicians, at the end of the day, you have an object that you make. And so a musician can dream up a composition and play it himself, and it's gone, whatever. Or an artist can do everything on a canvas. But we do buildings for people to live in, and it's got to be buildable. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't push what's buildable. You need to push what's buildable.
Last question. How does a career in architecture support or impact your community?
That's a really good. It's a really good question. I mean, I've been really lucky because the firm I'm with, all of our work is for community. It's really in the sense that it's for, like I say, institutions. And so when we work for a university, it has an obvious impact on the community. We're designing buildings that number one, are going to be there a long time, because big institutional clients are not building spec housing in the desert, that's going to be there for 20 years and it's going to fall apart or whatever. We build buildings that are going to be there for 100 years or even longer. And so it impacts, there's a whole generations of people are going to be going through those buildings. And so that you feel a sense of responsibility to make them good buildings because they're going to be there a long time. So it impacts that way. I think the kind of work that we do impacts the community in the sense that we really like to feel that we're doing good as we design our work. Like for instance, for a while we had thought we do courthouses, and so we thought, well, maybe we should be doing jails. And we kind of thought, no, we shouldn't be doing jails. It's not that jails, other people can do jails. We don't want to be doing jails, not because they're bad for the community, but because it just goes contrary to everything else that we do. We want to build positive places for people. The idea of designing jail cells is not very attractive. So I've been lucky. Not everybody can do that, and there's a lot of good architects that, they do commercial work that may or may not impact the community, or they do, whatever. But I've been really lucky in that the work I've been able to do I feel has really direct impact on the community.